Taemin pressed his face against the observation window and stared at the endless darkness of space. Stars scattered across the void like tiny diamonds on black silk. He had dreamed of this moment his entire life. 26 years on Earth, studying alien life forms in laboratories and reading reports from distant worlds, and now he was finally here. His first real mission into deep space. The research vessel Meridian's light hummed softly around him. It was smaller than he had imagined, with narrow corridors and cramped quarters. But it was home now. Taemin had been aboard for 3 weeks, and he still felt like a child in a candy store. Every beep of the instruments, every flicker of distant nebulae, every conversation with the crew filled him with wonder. "You're going to wear out that window," a voice said behind him. Taemin turned to see Jiwoo leaning against the doorway. The security officer was in her late 30s, with short black hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. She wore her uniform like armor, every button fastened, every crease perfect. A thin scar ran along her left cheek, and she never smiled. "Not really. I can't help it," Taemin said. "It's beautiful out here." Jiwoo walked over and stood beside him. She looked out at the stars with an expression that might have been sadness, or might have been nothing at all. "Beautiful?" she repeated. "I suppose it is. I've been out here so long, I forget to notice. How long have you been in space?" 12 years, 4 different ships. Seen things that would give you nightmares." She glanced at him. "You're going to learn that space isn't always beautiful. Sometimes it's just cold and empty. Sometimes it's dangerous." Before Taemin could respond, the ship's intercom crackled to life. Captain Daeho's voice filled the corridor. "All crew to the bridge. We've found something. After the bridge." Jiwoo was already moving. Taemin hurried after her, his heart beating faster. They found something. That could mean anything out here. New planet, asteroid field, debris from an old ship. He hoped it was something interesting. The bridge was small and crowded when they arrived. Captain Daeho stood at the center, studying a holographic display that floated in the air. He was a solid man in his 50s, with gray at his temples and steady hands. Beside him, Hyojin frantically worked at her console. The chief engineer was younger than the captain but older than Taemin, with nervous energy that made her fingers fly across the controls. "What is it, Captain?" Jiwoo asked. Daeho gestured at the hologram. Taemin stepped closer and felt his breath catch. The display showed something massive, something that shouldn't exist. It looked organic, like a giant sea creature made of metal and flesh twisted together. Tubes and cables spiraled around a central mass that pulsed with dim light. It was easily 10 times the size of their ship. "We detected it an hour ago," Daeho said. "It just appeared on our sensors. No warning, no previous readings. It's just floating there near the Helios Nebula." "What is it?" Taemin whispered. "That's what we need to find out," the captain said. "Hyojin, what are your readings?" The engineer shook her head. "Nothing makes sense, sir. The structure defies our understanding of physics. Parts of it register as biological, other parts as synthetic. The energy readings are off the charts, but I can't identify the source. It's like nothing in our databases." "Could it be a ship?" Jiwoo asked. "Maybe from a species we haven't encountered?" "Possibly," Daeho said. "But I've never seen any ship that looks like that." Taemin moved closer to the hologram, studying every detail. His training kicked in, and he started analyzing what he saw. The organic components looked ancient, older than any alien tissue samples he had studied. The structure had symmetry, but not in any pattern he recognized, and there was something else. Something that made his skin crawl. "It's alive," he said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. "What did you say?" Daeho asked. "The structure. I think it's alive. Look at the way it pulses. That's not machinery. That's a heartbeat." Hyojin checked her instruments again. Her face went pale. "He's right. I'm detecting biorhythms. Very faint, But they're there. Whatever that thing is, it's living. Ji-woo stepped forward. Captain, I recommend we maintain distance and report this to command. We're a research vessel, not equipped for first contact with unknown entities. Noted, Daeho said. But command is 3 weeks away even with fast communication. By the time we get orders, this thing could be gone. We have an opportunity here. Or a threat, Ji-woo countered. The captain studied the hologram for a long moment. Taemin watched the conflict play across his face. Caution versus curiosity. Safety versus discovery. Finally, Daeho nodded. We'll approach slowly. Battle stations, just in case. Taemin, I want you running every scan you can. Hyojin, monitor all systems. Ji-woo, keep weapons ready but do not fire unless I give the order. Is that clear? Yes, sir, they said together. The Meridian's light turned toward the alien structure. Taemin returned to his station and activated every instrument at his disposal. His hands trembled slightly. This was it. Real xenobiology, not simulations or preserved samples, something alive and unknown. As they drew closer, Taemin's instruments began registering new data. The structure was even larger than they thought, easily 15 times their ship's size. The pulsing grew stronger, more rhythmic. And then his screen showed something that made his blood run cold. The structure was emitting signals. Not random energy, but patterns. Complex patterns that looked almost like language. Captain, Taemin said, I think it's trying to communicate. Before Daeho could respond, the structure suddenly blazed with light. Every surface lit up at once. Brilliant and blinding. Alarms shrieked throughout the ship. Hyojin shouted something about systems failing. Ji-woo grabbed onto her console as the ship lurched violently. Taemin felt an invisible force grab the Meridian's light and pull. They were moving toward the structure, accelerating despite Hyojin's desperate attempts to fire the reverse thrusters. The lights on the bridge flickered and died, replaced by emergency red lighting. We're being pulled in, Hyojin screamed. The alien structure opened. A massive aperture split down its center, revealing a darkness deeper than space itself. The Meridian's light tumbled toward it. Helpless and small, Taemin grabbed his console as the ship spun. Through the chaos, through the alarms and shouting, he looked at his instruments one last time. The readings were impossible, but they were clear. The structure wasn't just alive. It was watching them, and it was hungry. Taemin woke to the sound of hissing air and the smell of burnt metal. His head throbbed where it had struck the console during the crash. Crash. The word echoed in his foggy mind. They had crashed inside the structure. He pushed himself up from the floor and looked around the bridge. Emergency lights cast everything in red shadows. Captain Daeho was already on his feet, checking the other crew members. Ji-woo had a cut above her eye but was moving, securing the weapons locker. Hyojin sat at her station, fingers dancing across dead controls. Report, Daeho ordered. Main power is offline, Hyojin said. Her voice shook slightly. Emergency systems only. Life support is functional, but we're leaking atmosphere from sections 4 and 7. I'm sealing those areas now. Weapons are operational, Ji-woo added. But we're stuck fast. Something has grabbed the hull. Taemin checked his instruments. Half were dead, but the ones still working showed impossible readings. Captain, we're inside the structure. Completely inside. The walls around us are organic. They've grown around our hull. Daeho moved to look at Taemin's screen. Can we break free? I don't know, sir. The structure is incredibly strong, and it's still alive. I'm reading biosigns all around us. The intercom crackled. Bridge. This is Medical Bay. Sun Ho here. I have injuries to treat. Young Mi has a broken arm, and 3 others have minor wounds. I need help moving them. On my way, Ji-woo said, already moving toward the door. The captain nodded. Take Taemin with you. I need to assess our situation with Hyojin. Taemin followed Ji-woo through the corridors. The ship tilted at an odd angle, making walking difficult. Doors hung open, some damaged by the impact. They passed Section 4, and Taemin saw the breach. The metal hull had been torn open like paper. Beyond it, instead of space, there was a wall of pulsing organic matter, veins of light running through it like glowing blood vessels. "Don't look at it too long," Ji-woo warned. "It makes my head hurt." At the medical bay, Sun-ho was bandaging Young-mi's arm. The medical officer was a calm man in his 40s, but Taemin could see tension in his shoulders. Young-mi, the communications specialist, sat on the examination table. She was young, barely 23, with tears streaking her face. "It hurts," she whispered. "The arm hurts, but something else too. In my head. Do you hear it?" "Hear what?" Sun-ho asked gently. "The voice. It's calling. It's so hungry." Ji-woo and Taemin exchanged glances. Sun-ho gave Young-mi something for the pain, and she closed her eyes, still murmuring about voices. "She hit her head hard," Sun-ho explained quietly. "Possible concussion. The pain medication should help her rest." But Taemin wasn't sure it was just a concussion. He thought about his instruments, about the signals the structure had sent. What if Young-mi was hearing something real? They spent the next hour helping Sun-ho treat the injured and sealing more breaches. The ship had 7 crew members total, and except for Young-mi's broken arm, everyone had survived relatively unharmed. That was lucky. Maybe their only luck. When they returned to the bridge, Daeho had new orders. "We need to explore our surroundings. Find a way out, or at least understand where we are. Ji-woo, take Taemin and Bo-ram. Search the structure beyond our ship. Stay in constant communication." Bo-ram was a junior officer, barely a year out of training. She looked terrified, but nodded bravely. Ji-woo checked her weapons and handed a small pistol to Taemin. "Do you know how to use this?" "I've had basic training." "Good enough. Stay behind me and don't shoot unless I tell you." They exited through an airlock that opened into the structure itself. Taemin's suit sensors immediately went crazy. The atmosphere outside was breathable, which made no sense. They were inside an alien structure in deep space, and yet there was air, pressure, even a strange warmth. The corridor beyond their ship was vast and horrifying. Walls curved upward and merged into a ceiling lost in darkness. Everything pulsed with that same rhythmic light, like walking inside a living heart. The floor was soft under their boots. Not quite solid, but not liquid either. Cables and tubes ran along the walls. Some thin as hair, others thick as Taemin's leg. "This is wrong," Bo-ram whispered. "Everything about this is wrong." They walked carefully forward. Ji-woo's helmet light cut through the gloom, revealing more impossible sights. Other ships were embedded in the walls. Dozens of them. Some looked human-made, but ancient, centuries old. Others were clearly alien. Designs Taemin had never seen before. "We're not the first ones trapped here," Ji-woo said. They approached the nearest alien ship. It was small, maybe a scout vessel. Through a porthole, Taemin saw movement. He raised his light and immediately wished he hadn't. Something was inside the ship. Something that had once been alive, but wasn't anymore. The creature's body was merged with the ship's walls, flesh and metal grown together. Its face was frozen in a silent scream. Bo-ram turned away and was sick. Taemin wanted to do the same but forced himself to stay professional. He took readings of the corpse. "It's been here for months, maybe years. The structure has absorbed it, fed on it. Then we need to find a way out fast," Ji-woo said, "before it does the same to us." They moved deeper into the structure. The corridors branched and twisted, forming a maze. Taemin tried to map their route, but quickly got confused. The structure seemed to shift subtly when they weren't looking, like it was alive and rearranging itself. They found more ships, more bodies. Some were so old they had become part of the walls completely. Others were fresher, still recognizable as individual beings. Every species looked different, but they all wore the same expression of terror. "Bridge, this is Ji-woo," the security officer said into her radio. "We've found approximately 40 other vessels trapped in here. All crews appear dead or absorbed by the structure. Recommend immediate evacuation protocols." Static answered her. Then, Daeho's voice. "Breaking up. Repeat. Not clear. Captain? Captain, do you read me?" "Only static." "We've gone too deep," Taemin said. "The structure is interfering with our signals. Then we go back," Ji-woo decided. Now, but when they turned around, the corridor looked different. The path they had taken was gone, replaced by a wall of pulsing flesh. "No," Boram said. "No. No. No. We came from there. We came from right there." Ji-woo checked her navigation device. "According to this, we haven't moved. But I know we walked for 20 minutes. Taemin studied the walls, his scientific mind racing. "It's changing. The structure is alive, and it's rearranging itself. We're not lost. We're being herded." "Herded where?" Boram asked. As if in answer, Youngmi's voice suddenly filled their helmet speakers. But it wasn't just her voice. Something else spoke through her. Something vast and ancient and hungry. "Welcome," the voice said, using Youngmi's mouth. "Welcome to the prison. Welcome to your new home. Welcome to terror itself." The lights around them pulsed faster, like a heartbeat racing with excitement. In the distance, something screamed. Not human. Not any species Taemin knew. Just endless, mindless terror made into sound. Ji-woo raised her weapon. Boram grabbed Taemin's arm, and somewhere behind them, in the twisting corridors of the nightmare structure, something began to hunt. Ji-woo fired her weapon at the thing coming toward them through the darkness. The creature had been something once. Some alien being, with 4 legs and too many arms. Now it was twisted, its body merged with the structure's organic matter, trailing cables and flesh behind it as it crawled. The blast hit it square in the chest, and it shrieked, but kept coming. "Run!" Ji-woo shouted. They ran through the twisting corridors. Taemin's lungs burned, and Boram sobbed as she stumbled beside him. Behind them, more screams echoed. The creature wasn't alone. How many trapped beings had been transformed into these things? How many hunters prowled these corridors? They rounded a corner, and Ji-woo pulled them into a side passage, pressing them against the wall. The creature rushed past, its twisted body scraping against the narrow space. When its footsteps faded, Ji-woo cautiously led them forward. "We need shelter," she said. "Somewhere defensible." They found it 10 minutes later. A section of the structure that looked newer, less organic. Inside was a small chamber, and in that chamber sat a living being. Ji-woo raised her weapon. "Don't move." The figure held up its hands slowly. It looked humanoid, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. It wore the remnants of a uniform from some unknown world. When it spoke, a device on its collar translated the words into Korean. "Please," it said. "I am not your enemy. My name is Kyung-soo. I have been trapped here for 7 months." Taemin stepped forward carefully. 7 months. How did you survive? By hiding, by running, by learning the prison's rhythms. Kyung-soo gestured to the chamber. "This place is relatively safe. The creatures rarely come here. I do not know why." "Prison?" Ji-woo kept her weapon ready. "You called this place a prison, because that is what it is. Please. Sit. Rest. You look exhausted. I will tell you what I know." They sat, though Ji-woo remained alert. Taemin noticed that Kyung-soo was thin, clearly starving. The alien had survived, but barely. "My ship was exploring this sector," Kyung-soo began. "We detected this structure, much as you must have. When we approached, it pulled us inside. My crew, 17 good people, they are all dead now or worse, changed into those things that hunt these corridors. What is this place? Taemin asked. Who built it? The ancients. A coalition of species that existed millions of years ago. They built this structure to imprison something, an entity they could not kill. My people have legends about it, things that our gen. About it, we called it the consuming dread in our language, a being that feeds on fear and suffering. Boram wrapped her arms around herself. That's impossible. Nothing can live for millions of years. This thing is not alive as we understand life, Kyung-soo said. It exists beyond our physical laws. The ancients trapped it here, built this prison around it. But the prison is failing. For thousands of years it has been breaking down, and the entity has been testing its bonds. Every ship it captures, every crew it takes, feeds it more power. The creatures, Jiwoo said. It made them? Yes. It corrupts beings, transforms them into extensions of itself. It feeds on their terror and uses their bodies as puppets. I have watched many die this way. I am only alive because I have learned to suppress my fear, to hide my emotions. Taemin thought about Youngmi and her voices. It's telepathic? In a way. It reaches into minds, finds what terrifies you most, and makes it real. The structure itself responds to its will. The corridors change. The walls move. It plays with its prey before consuming them. Then how do we escape? Jiwoo demanded. Kyung-soo's expression grew sad. I do not think we can. I have searched for 7 months. Every exit leads to walls of solid matter. Every control system is dead or unresponsive. The prison was designed to be perfect, to hold the entity forever. But in doing so, the ancients also created the perfect trap for anyone else who enters. There must be something, Taemin said. Some weakness, some way to fight back, perhaps. I have studied the prison as best I can. The entity is strongest at the center, where it was originally bound. The farther from the center, the weaker its influence. That is why this chamber is safer. We are near the outer edge. What about our ship? Boram asked. Can we repair it and break free? The structure has merged with your vessel by now. It grows fast, consuming any technology it touches. Your ship is already part of the prison. They sat in silence, absorbing this terrible knowledge. Taemin's mind raced through possibilities and rejected them one by one. If what Kyung-soo said was true, they were trapped with no hope of escape. But he refused to accept that. There had to be something. You said the prison is failing, Taemin said slowly. How? What's breaking down? The binding systems. The ancients used some form of technology I cannot understand, but I have seen the control nodes. They look like crystalline structures throughout the prison. Many are dark now, inactive. When enough fail, the entity will break free. So the entity wants to escape just as much as we do, Jiwoo said. It's working against the prison. Yes. It uses trapped beings to try to damage the systems further. That is why it transforms them into creatures. They are its workers, trying to tear down the walls of its cage. Taemin stood and paced the small chamber. An idea was forming. Dangerous and desperate. What if we could strengthen the prison? Repair the binding systems? Impossible, Kyung-soo said. The technology is beyond us. Maybe. But I'm a xenobiologist. I study alien systems, how different species build and think. And we have Hyojin, an engineer. If we could get back to our ship, if we could study the control nodes you mentioned, maybe we could figure something out. That would require going deeper into the structure, Kyung-soo said. Closer to the entity's heart. The danger would be extreme. We're already in extreme danger, Jiwoo said. She looked at Taemin with something like respect. But it's a plan. Better than sitting here waiting to die. There is something else you should know, Kyung-soo said quietly. About humans specifically. I have been listening to your radio signals, learning your language. The entity fears you. Fears us? Bo-Ram said. Why? I do not fully understand. But when it reached into my mind, I saw its thoughts about your species. You are new to this galaxy, barely beginning to spread among the stars. Yet the entity recognizes something in human psychology. Your people experience fear like any other species. But you also possess an unusual quality. You hope even when hope seems impossible. You fight even when fighting seems futile. This confuses the entity. It does not understand hope. Taemin felt something stir in his chest. Not quite hope, not yet, but something close. Then maybe that's our advantage. The one thing the ancients didn't count on. Humans haven't learned to give up. They rested for an hour, and Kyung-Soo shared his meager food supplies. Then, they prepared to move. The plan was simple, but dangerous. Return to the Meridian's light, gather Hyojin and whatever equipment they could carry, and then push deeper into the structure to find the control nodes. As they prepared to leave, the structure suddenly shuddered. The walls pulsed faster, and through the corridors came a sound like laughter made of screams. It knows, Kyung-Soo whispered. Good, Jiwoo said, checking her weapon. Let it watch. Let it learn that humans don't fail quietly. They moved out into the corridors. Somewhere ahead, their ship waited. Somewhere beyond that, the heart of the prison pulsed with ancient evil. And somewhere in between, Youngmi's voice still echoed through the walls, no longer entirely her own, calling them deeper into the nightmare. But they walked forward anyway, because that's what humans did. They walked into the darkness, even when the darkness was watching. Getting back to the Meridian's light took 3 hours. The corridors had changed again, and twice they had to hide while corrupted creatures stalked past them. Kyung-Soo led them through passages he had memorized, taking routes the creatures rarely used. When they finally saw their ship, Taemin felt relief wash over him. The vessel looked worse than before. Organic matter had grown over the hull like a disease, pulsing tubes connecting it to the structure. But the airlock still worked, and they climbed inside. Captain Dae-ho met them with his weapon drawn, then lowered it when he saw Jiwoo. Thank God. We lost contact hours ago. We thought you were dead. Nearly were, Jiwoo said, several times. Captain, this is Kyung-Soo. He's been trapped here for months, and he knows what this place is. They gathered on the bridge. Hyojin and Sunho joined them, and Kyung-Soo explained everything again. The prison, the entity, the failing systems. When he finished, the crew sat in stunned silence. So we're trapped, Dae-ho said finally. Completely trapped with no way out. Not completely, Taemin said. He explained his idea about repairing the prison's binding systems. It's dangerous, maybe impossible, but it's something. It's suicide, Sunho said. Going deeper into this place? We should be trying to escape, not going further in. There is no escape, Kyung-Soo said gently. I am sorry. I have tried every path. What about Youngmi? Hyojin asked. Is she still alive? She's in the medical bay, Sunho said. Sedated. She won't stop screaming about the voices. The entity has made contact with her mind. Then we're running out of time, Jiwoo said. If it can reach her, it can reach any of us. We need to act now, or give up completely. Dae-ho looked at each of his crew members. Taemin saw the weight of command on the captain's shoulders. Whatever decision he made, people might die. They might all die. We move forward, Dae-ho said. We're not giving up. Not while we still breathe. Hyojin, gather every tool and scanning device we have. Sunho, prepare medical supplies for extended mission. Jiwoo, weapons and ammunition. Everyone else, rest while you can. We leave in 2 hours. Those 2 hours passed too quickly. Taemin tried to rest but couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the entity, about creatures that had once been people, about Youngmi's screams. He thought about his family on Earth, how they would never know what happened to him if he died here. Bo-Ram found him in the corridor outside his quarters. The young officer looked scared but determined. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you really think we can do this? Or are we just delaying the inevitable?" Taemin considered lying, then decided she deserved honesty. "I don't know. Maybe we're all going to die here. But I'd rather die trying than die waiting. Does that make sense?" Bo-Ram nodded slowly. "I've been afraid my whole life. Afraid of not being good enough. Of failing. Of being forgotten. But right now, I'm more afraid of giving up. That scares me more than the monsters out there." "Then you're braver than you think." They assembled on the bridge. 7 people, including Kyung-soo. 8 if you counted Young-mi, who Sunho had placed in a portable medical pod. They couldn't leave her behind, not while there was a chance to save her. "Kyung-soo," Daeho said. "Lead us to the nearest control node." The alien nodded. "Follow me. Stay close and stay quiet. The deeper we go, the more creatures we will encounter." They moved through the structure in tight formation. Ji-woo took point with her weapon ready. Daeho and Bo-Ram guarded the flanks. Taemin and Hyo-jin stayed in the middle with their equipment. Sunho pushed Youngmi's pod, and Kyung-soo led from beside Ji-woo. The corridors grew stranger as they went deeper. The walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting. Strange sounds echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Taemin's instruments went crazy, registering energy patterns that shouldn't exist. They encountered their first creature after 20 minutes. It had been human once, part of a crew that got trapped decades ago. Now it was a twisted thing, its body fused with cables and machinery, its mind gone. Ji-woo shot it 3 times before it stopped moving. "Keep moving," Daeho ordered. "Don't stop for anything." More creatures appeared. Some attacked, others just watched from the shadows, with eyes that held no recognition, only hunger. The crew fought their way forward, using their limited ammunition carefully. Bo-Ram surprised everyone by staying calm under fire, even taking down a creature that came at them from a side passage. After an hour, Kyung-soo stopped at a massive door. "Beyond this is a control node chamber. The entity's influence will be strong here. Prepare yourselves." "Prepare how?" Hyo-jin asked. "Think of things that make you strong. Memories of hope, of love, of purpose. The entity will try to show you your fears. You must resist." They opened the door and entered a cathedral of nightmares. The chamber was vast, with walls that curved up into darkness. In the center floated a crystalline structure the size of a building, pulsing with dim light. Dozens of cables connected it to the walls, floor, and ceiling. "That's the control node," Kyung-soo said. "It regulates the binding field in this sector. As you can see, it is failing." Taemin and Hyo-jin approached with their instruments. Up close, the crystal was beautiful and terrible. Inside it, shapes moved. Faces, voices whispered from it, begging for help, for release, for death. "Don't listen to them," Kyung-soo warned. "The entity uses the trapped consciousness of its victims to power the creatures. Those voices are not truly the people they once were." Hyo-jin began scanning, while Taemin studied the crystal's structure. It was biological and technological at once. Grown by the ancients using methods he couldn't comprehend, but he could see the damage, the cracks spreading through it like veins. "Can you fix it?" Daeho asked. "Maybe," Hyo-jin said. "But it would require direct interface. Someone would need to connect with the crystal, use their consciousness, to stabilize it." "What would that do to the person?" Sunho asked. "Unknown. It might kill them. It might trap their mind. Like those voices we hear. Then we find another way," Daeho said. But Taemin wasn't listening anymore. He was staring at the crystal, at the patterns of energy flowing through it. And he understood. The prison needed consciousness to function, living minds to maintain the binding field. The ancients had built it that way, using volunteer guardians who gave themselves to keep the entity trapped. But those guardians had died millions of years ago. Now the system was using the victims the entity captured, twisting their consciousness into fuel. That's why it wanted more ships, more prey, not just to feed on fear but to power the failing prison. Before Taemin could share his realization, the chamber shook. The entity had been waiting, watching, and now it struck. The walls opened, and creatures poured in by the dozens. Not the shambling, corrupted beings they had fought before, but something worse. The entity itself reached out through the structure, manifesting as living nightmares made from the crew's deepest fears. Jiwoo saw her previous crew, the ones who had died on her watch, reaching for her with accusing eyes. Dae-ho faced his wife, who had died 5 years ago, screaming that he had abandoned her. Bo-ram confronted a version of herself that was small, weak, worthless. They were hallucinations, projections, but they felt real. The entity was at full strength here, near its heart, and it wanted them to break. "Fight it," Kyung-soo shouted. "Remember what is real." But reality was hard to hold on to when your worst fears walked toward you wearing familiar faces. Taemin watched his mother die in front of him. Not the real woman who was safe on Earth, but a perfect copy created by the entity. She aged rapidly, withered, and turned to dust while calling his name. The pain felt real. The grief felt real. For a moment, he almost believed it was real. Then he remembered what Kyung-soo had said. The entity didn't understand hope. It fed on fear, but couldn't comprehend the opposite emotion. That was its weakness. "It's not real," Taemin shouted. "None of this is real. Focus on what matters." His words cut through the nightmare. Jiwoo blinked, and her dead crew members flickered like bad projections. Dae-ho steadied himself, and his wife's ghost faded. Bo-ram stood straighter, and her weak self dissolved. The entity screamed, not with sound, but with pressure, a wave of pure rage that made their ears bleed. It wasn't used to prey that fought back. It wasn't used to hope. "The crystal," Taemin yelled. "We need to stabilize it now." Hyojin was already moving, pulling cables from her pack. "I can create a temporary connection, but someone has to interface. It requires a conscious mind to guide the repairs." "I'll do it," Dae-ho said immediately. "No," Taemin said. "It has to be me. You're too valuable. You understand this technology. That's exactly why it has to be me. I understand how the system works. I can stabilize it properly." Taemin looked at his captain, at his friend. "You need to get everyone out. Find a way to escape while the entity is distracted by me." "That's an order, sir." "I give orders here," Dae-ho said, but his voice cracked. "Not this time. Please, Captain. Someone has to stay, and I'm the one best suited. You know I'm right." Hyojin finished connecting the cables to the crystal and to a neural interface device. "It's ready. Whoever does this, do it now. The entity is pushing back hard." Taemin took the neural interface before anyone could stop him. It was a simple device, meant for basic computer connections. But Hyojin had modified it for this purpose. He placed it against his temple and felt it connect. The world exploded into color and sound and sensation. Suddenly, Taemin was everywhere at once. He could feel the entire structure. Every corridor. Every chamber. Every trapped being. He felt the entity too. A vast presence of hunger and hatred, and ancient, terrible intelligence. The entity spoke directly into his mind. "Little thing. Weak creature. You think to cage me again? I am eternal. I am inevitable. I have existed since stars were born." "Maybe," Taemin said, "but you're still trapped." He poured his consciousness into the crystal, using his knowledge of biology and technology to understand its structure. The ancients had built it beautifully, using living systems and advanced machinery in perfect harmony. But millions of years had taken their toll. Taemin began to repair it, not with tools but with thought. He reinforced the failing connections, rerouted the energy flows, stabilized the cracks. It was like solving a puzzle while the puzzle fought back. The entity pushed against him, trying to break his concentration, trying to fill his mind with fear. He saw terrible things. The entity showed him every person who had died in this prison, every moment of agony, every scream. It showed him Earth burning, his family dying, humanity wiped from existence. It showed him a universe consumed by darkness. But Taemin held on. He thought about Bo-Ram finding her courage. He thought about Ji-Woo's determination to protect her crew. He thought about Daeho's steady leadership. He thought about his mother's last words before he left for space. "Make us proud. I am proud," he whispered. "Proud to be human. Proud to stand here. Proud to say no to you." The crystal blazed with light. Power flowed through the binding system, stronger than it had been in centuries. The entity howled as its prison solidified around it. Outside his consciousness, Taemin dimly heard his friends. Daeho was shouting orders. Ji-Woo was firing her weapon at creatures trying to stop them. Hyojin was working frantically at her equipment. Sunho was trying to reach Taemin, to pull him away from the interface. "Leave him," Kyung-soo said. "He has made his choice. Honor it by surviving. The prison is stabilizing. An exit is opening on the outer edge. We must go now." "We can't leave him," Bo-Ram cried. "We must. He is buying us time. Do not waste his sacrifice." Taemin felt them leave. Each footstep away felt like a piece of his heart tearing. But he was glad. They would live. They would escape. That was enough. But then Youngmi stirred. The communications specialist opened her eyes, and for the first time in hours, they were clear. The entity's hold on her had weakened as it fought Taemin. "Wait," she said. Her voice was weak, but determined. "I hear him. Taemin. He's not asking us to leave. He's asking us to remember." "Remember what?" Sunho asked. Youngmi's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. "That humans don't leave people behind. That we're strongest together. That hope matters." The crew stopped. They looked at each other, at the exit that beckoned to them, at the crystal where Taemin fought, alone. "She's right," Ji-Woo said. "I've run before. I've left crew behind to save myself. I'm not doing it again." Ji-Woo said. Ji-Woo said. Ji-Woo said. "We can't save him," Kyung-soo said desperately. "The interface will kill him. His consciousness will be absorbed into the system. Then we make his sacrifice matter," Daeho said. "But we do it our way." "Hyojin, can you strengthen the connection? Add more consciousness to support him?" "Maybe. If we all connect simultaneously. But whoever does this will share his fate. We would all be trapped in the crystal." Quote, "Or," Hyojin said slowly, "we could create a network. Multiple minds supporting the system together, sharing the load. No single person trapped forever. But all of us, bound to the prison, taking turns, maintaining it." "For how long?" Bo-Ram asked. "Years, maybe decades. Until humanity can send a proper relief team, scientists who can find a permanent solution." "That's a life sentence," Sunho said. "We'd grow old in this place. But we'd be alive," Ji-Woo said. "And we'd be keeping this thing locked up. How many worlds has it destroyed? How many species has it consumed? If we can stop it..." "Oh, isn't that worth a lifetime?" They looked at each other. 7 people, 8 counting Taemin. No one spoke for a long moment. Then Bo-Ram laughed. It was a slightly hysterical sound, but it was genuine. "I spent my whole life afraid of not mattering. Well, this definitely matters." One by one, they moved to the crystal. Hyojin connected them all through the neural interface, creating a network of consciousness. When they linked together, Taemin felt them join him in the crystal. The entity screamed again, but now it faced not one human mind but 8, all supporting each other, all sharing the burden. Together, they were stronger than the entity expected. They repaired the binding systems completely, sealing the entity in its prison more tightly than it had been in millennia. The structure stopped changing. The creatures collapsed, no longer animated by the entity's will. The nightmare was over, but the crew remained. Their consciousness, now part of the prison itself. They could feel the structure, control it, maintain it. They created a small section near the outer edge, where their bodies could rest safely. They established a system where they could take turns being fully conscious, others resting in a kind of sleep. Time passed strangely inside the crystal. Days, weeks, months. They talked to each other through their shared connection, learning things about one another they never would have known otherwise. They told stories, shared memories, kept each other sane. Young Mi used her skills to send a message back toward human space, explaining what had happened and where they were. It would take years to reach anyone, but it was a beacon of hope. 3 years later, a human rescue ship arrived. They came prepared, with scientists and engineers, ready to study the prison and find a permanent solution. The crew of the Meridian's Light could finally rest, their duty fulfilled. As they disconnected from the crystal, emerging like sleepers from a long dream, Taemin looked at his friends. They had aged, their hair showing gray, their faces lined with experience, but they were alive. More than that, they were stronger. "We stood together," he said quietly. "We stood with humanity," Jiwoo replied. The rescue team helped them to their ship. As they left the structure, Taemin looked back one last time. The entity was still there, still trapped, still hungry, but it was held by more than ancient technology now. It was held by the memory of 8 humans who refused to give up, who chose hope over despair, who stood in the darkness and said no. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not fearlessness, but the courage to stand afraid. Not strength, but the will to endure. Not certainty, but hope in the face of hopelessness. And in the cold void of space, in a prison older than civilizations, that had been enough.